Hello again, everybody. I'm Todd Rossnagel, Director of Communications for the Louisiana Conference. We are coming on the air today on this Sunday, October 11th, as we continue to assess the impact from Hurricane Delta. We have invited several pastors from across the Lake Charles district to join us. Two have agreed to come on the air. I know many pastors and many Louisianians are still dealing with power outages, but we did want to get a check of how things are in the Lake Charles district. And the Reverend Angela Bullhoff from University United Methodist Church in Lake Charles and the Reverend John Robert Black from St. Luke Simpson, they both join us this afternoon to give us an update on how things are in the Lake Charles district. Reverend Bullhoff, we'll start with you. The dramatic pictures after Hurricane Laura, some of the most dramatic pictures. I mean, there were a lot of dramatic pictures, but some of the most dramatic pictures, at least from our perspective inside the Louisiana Conference, were the photos, the video that we took of the side of University United Methodist Church. It just, the wall just completely collapsed. It was absolutely devastating. And I know a lot of people are wondering, how is University? Did you sustain any more damage? What's your update?
Thanks, Todd. We really appreciate your continuing to shine a light down in the corner of the state where we're experiencing dark times. We were able before Laura, through our remediation company, to get a temporary wall back up where that wall was missing, and other places where roofs were missing. We had put those all back in place, and that wall that everybody's seen, that did hold. However, it buckled some, so you can't see in from the street, but we are going to have to repair our temporary patch before we're able to actually replace it. We did receive water in the building where we didn't have water before, so there just aren't very many rooms that aren't going to need further remediation. I would say we could count on a hand how many we won't have to remediate, which is a little bit discouraging, but it's true that we're not back to ground zero or square one. Even if we had to take a few steps back, we already have decided which companies are trustworthy to be working with, and because of that relationship, we're able to kind of pick up again where we are and move forward in probably a quicker way this time. So not as dramatic. You can't really see from the outside the damage as much, but Waters is insidious, and you can begin to smell its effects pretty quick. And we were in there today looking at that.
Thank you for that update. John Robert Black is the pastor at St. Luke Simpson in Lake Charles, and he joins us now. John Robert, I never asked where you are. Are you in Lake Charles, or?
No, I'm in North Louisiana right now.
Okay. And I know a lot of people are still kind of making their way back to Lake Charles. We are dealing with power outages yet again. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, John Robert, how is St. Luke Simpson?
You know, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the opposite of Reverend Angela and University, where we don't have like a major, like catastrophic type of damage, so much as we've got little damage everywhere. And we, a lot of our rooms have water, and we got more water in our youth center. And we've got some very concerning spots on the ceiling of the sanctuary. And the issue that's creating for us is, as we were talking beforehand, you know, it's ironic that water in baptism is a sign of forgiveness. But in a building, it's very unforgiving. And it just will not go away. And, you know, a couple weeks ago, we walked into a hallway that we didn't think any water was in, and the floor is just buckling and tiles are popping up. And, you know, that's more of what we're dealing with is, you know, water in all the rooms. and although not a single like catastrophic type of damage. And so like Reverend Angela, you know, we've got really good people and mitigation crews, and we're working really hard. But and I think our gym is going to be okay. There's no carpet; we got that dry, so I think we will at least have one big room we can run most of our stuff and our worship in. No, I'm grateful, very grateful for that.
And as much as we sometimes right after a disaster like this, we focus on buildings. We really want to talk a little bit about the people and the other buildings in Lake Charles, the homes for those members of United Methodist churches all across not only Lake Charles, but Southwest Louisiana, Alexandria. Angela, we were talking earlier about just how devastating just a small cone of wind, a small 40-mile-an-hour gust of wind will take a tarped roof and tear it to pieces. I can only imagine what folks are dealing with now after having finally tarped their roof after Laura, and now going back to square one in some sense.
Yeah, I went into Lake Charles today. I'm on my way home. I'm sitting at a Starbucks parking lot in Beaumont at the moment, making my way back to my family. But as I was preparing to head back today, I made my list. That, of course, I needed to check on property I'm responsible for, but it was really a longer list of the people, trying to just keep track of who's facing what situation and whose house I haven't laid eyes on yet. And so I knew that they had one couple in my church who I was sure got water through flash flood during Delta, and I really wanted to lay eyes on them if I could, and God was good and allowed me to arrive before their family whisked them away to rest a while. And as soon as they laid eyes on me, you know, it seemed like they were trying to stay strong and move stuff and, you know, encourage their family who was there to help them, but their face just like fell and dissolved when they saw their pastor, and they just wanted to, COVID or not, just throw their arms around someone who, you know, says, you know, God got this and you're not in this alone. So I know that John Robert feels this way too. I wish I felt like I had more time to do that for more people. But there's only one of me, and we've got our own stuff. So thank God for the body of Christ, because when I can't show up, there are other neighbors and other church members doing that as well. And the woman that I visited, she kept reminding me, I think she was trying to remind herself, but she was reminding me, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this, and it's just stuff. But that does not mean that the whole community isn't mourning. I mean, it really is loss upon loss upon loss. We had a church member die in a terrible car crash while she was evacuating. She was in Lufkin at the time. And so it just seems like it's grief upon grief. And we wonder when we're going to be on the other side of it. And we're not there yet, but we're holding each other through it.
John Robert, how do you begin to assess the pastoral care that's needed in the Lake Charles area, in Southwest Louisiana, and for that matter, Louisiana in general? How do we even begin to respond? What's running through your mind?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, and I can answer it very specifically, and Reverend Angela just touched on it. I don't think I've ever been more torn pastorally, because as the senior pastors of these churches, we have a responsibility that if we don't do the correct things and the smart things and the wise things, we can lose these buildings, and we can make mistakes financially and set the church and the property and the buildings back, I mean, you know, years. And so it's critical for us as leaders that we have to be on top of this administratively. But it really is frustrating, because that's not what we want to be doing. and we want to be out with our people, and but it's definitely the most overwhelming I've ever felt when there's all kinds of damage at your church, there's all kinds of damage at your home, and you know, it's just stuff in one sense of the word, but that stuff is how we live. It's where we sleep. It's how we eat, and it is definitely a spiritual sort of paradox of I want to go see this elderly person, this widow person. I want to go see this single person, but you know the water line's leaking. And you know, and so many of our key leaders have so much stuff at their homes, you know, that it's very, very daunting, and it's very, very difficult. But I'll tell you, the other part is the pastoral care. I think I would have a different word, and maybe this is just my athletic background and being a competitive, you know, athletic and coaching, and my kids are all active in sports. It's almost more of a competitive game plan, you know, like.
I think we just lost John Robert. Angela, we'll wait for him to dial back in. But in typical John Robert Black fashion, kind of making an analogy to sports, we heard him talk about maybe a competitive game plan. Pick up if you can, if you can, on what he was talking about, specifically related to, you know, you got to have a plan for this kind of stuff, right? I mean, you can't, you've got to,
Yeah.
you can't just wing it, right?
It's true, and actually, it's a different sport. But I've been thinking a lot about the analogy of running. And right after a storm, it seems like a sprint. I mean, you have got to get the water out for it to not do more damage. You have got to get tarps on the roof before the next storm comes. But there comes a point in disaster recovery where you have got to realize that you are no longer in a sprint, but running a marathon. And you've got to really pace yourself. And I think that's true for me as a pastor, but I think it is true for every family, that once you know, life and property is relatively secure, that's the moment where you got to step back, take hold, and say, you know, what are all of the resources that I need to get on the other side of this. And I think that that church and just a spiritual basis, if you've put off, you know, taken your alone time with God, if you've thought, oh, well, I'll get caught up on my online worship later, you know, once you realize you're in a marathon, that's when you need to hunker down or remember where your spiritual foundation is. It's the same with your health. You know, if you've put off physical therapy, find a place to get that done. If you have put off meeting with your counselor because maybe you couldn't even find them, you got to find somebody to talk to, because you want to be you want to be you on the other side of this. And we want to be whole in the body of Christ. We want to be in a place ultimately where we don't have to be receiving the help anymore, but all we've learned in receiving, we're able to give back. And so, yeah, we've got to pace ourselves.
Absolutely. John Robert Black has reconnected with us, and John Robert, Angela did her best to try and pick up on your analogy of your athletic analogy. She did a great job talking about how this isn't a sprint, but this is a marathon, and we have to pace ourselves. But finish your thought about the competitive game plan that we all must be angling for, not just pastors, but all of us in Louisiana. You're muted. There
Okay,
you go.
am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
You know, I think it's almost like a righteous anger, a holy motivation. I mean, I'm mad. I'm mad at the people I love and care about have lost their homes. I'm just frustrated. Our beautiful city is in shambles. And I love what our mayor, who's done a great job, and our local leadership. I mean, he's like, we're kind of a forgotten national city. I mean, we are a major, port city on the coast. I mean, I love Lake Charles, man. I love Southwest Louisiana. I've served two great churches. My kids have done most of their significant experiences in life have been in Southwest Louisiana. I love Lake Charles. My kids played sports there. They've been confirmed there. I guess I'm impatient. I guess that I know God's going to get us through. Man, I have no doubt about that. I'm just ready to get to the getting through process, and I just ready to rebuild and get our kids back in school and get our churches back in worship. And it's a burden for not just your family and not just your church, but I love Bishop Harvey's emphasis. We are missional appointed. We are appointed to a territory, and I love that. And this is my territory. These are my people, and I'm heartbroken. I'm mad, but I am more motivated than I've ever been. And I'm so honored to be a small part of the spiritual rebuilding and to be a small part of a witness of hope to this community. And so it's a weird feeling, the crushed heart and yet the holy motivation, and nowhere else in the world I would rather be.
Well, I know that both of you can speak highly about the need of giving, the need for dollars to help in the restoration efforts in Southwest Louisiana. It is needed now more than ever. So for those of you at home who are watching this, your dollars will help. If you've given before, we ask for you to give again. This is an opportunity. The Lake Charles area, the Lake Charles district, Southwest Louisiana, they got hit once, they got hit again. And maybe now is the time for you to give again, because your dollars will be so instrumental in helping all of us recover here in the Louisiana Conference of the United Methodist Church, and helping pastors like John Robert Black and Angela Bullhoff to respond and continue to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Angela, I know that behind you is fuel of a different sort for your drive home as you head into Starbucks. We thank you for your time. John Robert Black, we thank you for your time as well. Keep your chins up, and this too shall pass.
Definitely.
Thanks, Todd. Really appreciate you. Hang in there, Robert. John Robert.
Yeah, you too. Most definitely.